Okay, so the next section that we are going to review for category 1 is functions. So remember, a function is a relation that pairs each input with exactly one output. So each x value can only have one y value. So what we don't want is we don't want to have an x that has two y values, two answers, because if I put the x value in, I want to know every single time what my answer is. I don't want to have a situation where I could get this y value this one time, and then the next time I put the x value into the equation, I get this y value. We don't like having that I don't know exactly what my answer is situation. We like our functions to be very predictable. Okay, so let's look at the different ways that they could ask us about a function. So first thing we've got is table and points. So I want to look. Every time I put in an x value of 0, I get 6. Every time I put in an x value of 1, my output is 4. When I put an input of 2 in, my output is 2. My input of 3, my output is always 0. For my input of 4, my output is always negative 2. So yes, this is a function because every time I put in this specific x value, I know exactly what my output value is going to be. So now let's look at this next example. So if I have an input of 3, my output is always a 4. For my input of 7, my output is always 3. For my input of 10, my output is always 4. For this input of 10, my output is 8. But if you remember just a second ago when we said our input was 10, that our output value was supposed to be 4. But here I have the same input, 10, but I get two different output values. I get 4 one time, and then the next time I put it in, I get 8. So I'm in this situation where I don't know exactly what my y value is going to be for my input value, for my x value. And this is what we would say is not a function, because I cannot predict when that output value is going to be 4 and when that output value is going to be an 8. So this function is not a working relationship in math, and that's what we do not like. So now let's see, if they give us a graph, how can we quickly tell if this is a function or not a function? So we're going to look at the vertical line test. That's what they look to see, because if you recall, along these vertical grid lines, up and down, those x values are always going to be -1. Over here, along this vertical grid line, it's always going to be a 2. So what we're going to do is we are going to trace all of these grid lines. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for one grid line to hit that function, to hit that graph in two different places. Well, if I trace the y-axis, it hits right there once. But if I trace this vertical line where x is 1, it's going to cross here, and it's going to cross down here on this sideway u, which means at the top point it has a value of 1, but at the bottom point it has a value of -1. So I get, for the same x value, I'm getting two different x's. So no, this is not a function. This is not a working relationship. So now I'm going to look here at the bottom graph. I have a horizontal line. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to trace all of these vertical lines. And all I need is one vertical line to hit that hoy line in 2 times on the same vertical line. Well, if you notice, I'm tracing, every time I trace a vertical line, I'm only hitting that graph one time, one time, one time, one time. That is completely fine. So this, because it passes the vertical line test, because I can keep drawing vertical lines to the right and keep drawing vertical lines to the left, and every time I draw a vertical line, that vertical line is only hitting it once, this is a function. It passes the vertical line test. Now for verbal, you want to figure out what your x and y values are. So number of floors in a hotel versus the height. So if you're trying to figure out what your x values are, you've got to think, what do I need to know first? Do I need to know the height first, and then I can tell the number of floor that I'm on in the hotel, or do I need to know the number of floor first before I can estimate the height? And you need to know the floors first. So those are our input values. Number of floors first, then we can know the height of the hotel, are our output values. Well, I'm looking at the input values. Do I have any repeat floors in a hotel, or is every number only used once to tell a floor? And that would be, I only have one floor for every number. I don't, in a hotel, I'm not going to have 2 second floors because then I'm not going to know which second floor you're referring to. So yes, this is a function. I have one x value for each height, okay? All right, and you can also think of it like this. If I'm 100 feet in the air, I can't be on the 3rd floor and the 5th floor. They're not going to have the same height, okay? Each student in your school versus their age. Okay, so what do I need to know first? I need to know the students first. If I know the student, then I can know their age. I'm not going to be able to go backwards. If I tell you an age, I'm not going to be able to tell you what student I'm talking about. So, students is your input, age is your output. Okay, so if we're talking about John is going to only have one age every time. I'm not going to say, oh, John is 14 and 15. He's either 14 or he's 15. So for this example, yes, this is a function because we're talking about each student in the school and they can only have one age at a time. So yes, this is a function. All right, symbolically, so now we're going to look at the relationship. X equals -3. Well, if you recall, an x equals graph, that is a vux, a vertical line, okay? So we know that this graph is going to go up and down, and everywhere along that line is going to have the same x value. But depending on where I'm at on that vertical line, I could have a different y value. So I am going to have a situation where no, I do not have a function, okay? Vertical lines are not functions because you have the same x value, but you have many different outputs, and I'm never going to be able to predict which output you're talking about from that x value. Now we're going to look at a mapping diagram. So remember, you start in the left and you go to the right, and so -4 maps to -3, -2 maps to -6, 0 maps to 0, and 3 maps to 2. So in this instance, just at these 4 x values I'm looking at, I know exactly what their y value is going to be. There is no situation where -4 can give me 2 y values. So yes, this is a function. All right, writing equations in function notation. So remember, when you see f of x, that is another name for y, the whole thing, the f, the parentheses, and the x, okay? If you see this, f of a number, they are telling you that that is your x value, okay? They're saying, hey, this number inside the parentheses, that is your x value. So you need to be familiar with that. So we're going to take this equation, y equals 3x minus 2, and we're going to write it in function notation. So what we're going to do is we are just going to replace y with f of x. And then I'm going to keep 3x minus 2 the same, okay? And if I were to want to figure out what this function rule is telling me for a y value when x is 5, I would put the 5 in parentheses here. So we're going to look at evaluating functions now that we've kind of reviewed this function notation. All right, so we've got f of x is equal to 3x minus 2. Now you see here I've got f of 3. So f of 3, this is telling me that my x is 3. That my x is 3. Okay, so if they are asking you for an x value, guys, or if they are giving you your x value of 3, what do you think they are asking you for? They are asking for your y value. So you can use your calculator to help you out. So we're going to go to y equals, and we're going to type in 3x minus 2. And then you can go to your table. But I want to show you what to do, because what if your x value is not a whole number or not a negative whole number? What if it's a decimal or a fraction? You need to know how to do this. So we're going to go back to y equals, and we're actually going to go to second trace from the y equals screen, and we're going to press option 1 for value. Okay? Press 1 for value. And it's going to graph your equation, so you want to let that graph happen. And then if you look here, it says x equals, and it's blinking. It's saying, hey, tell me your x value. And now you can type in any x value you have, and it's going to give it to you. So f of 3 is equal to a y value of 7. Okay? Now we're going to do the same thing. Again, it's saying f of x is equal to x squared plus 3x minus 4. What is f of negative 2? So again, they are telling you that x is equal to a negative 2, and we're going to use our calculator. So we're going to go to y equals. I'm going to type in x squared plus 3x minus 4. And then I'm going to go to second trace, and I'm going to press 1 for value because they are asking me, hey, when x is a negative 2, what is your y value? So I'm going to type in negative 2 for my x value, and then they are going to tell me that when x is a negative 2, y is equal to negative 6, and that's the location on my graph. So I'm going to say f of negative 2 is equal to negative 6. All right, let's look at the next one, example number 3. So now they're looking at, hey, now my x value is 3. What is f of 3? So they're saying when x is 3, what is y? Okay, f of 3 is equal to, it's just another way to say, hey, here's your x value, find your y value. And we got to use this equation, so I'm going to clear my memory. I'm going to go to y equals, and I'm going to type in negative 3 parentheses 5, just like they did. And notice their x is an exponent, so I got to make sure I make that x a power so I can get the correct answer. And I'm going to do second trace, option 1, if I want to find a y value. Yes, you can always go to your table, but I'm showing you what to do when your y value is not a whole number. Okay, and now don't worry about the graph. This is an exponential graph. And again, I'm going to type in my x value, f of 3. And it is equal to negative 375. So that is my y value. All right. Now we're going to find the given value of x so that the function has the given value. So now look how the notation is different. Notice I don't have a number on the inside of the parentheses. It's an x. And it's equal to 19. So remember, this is your y value. This is like y equals, okay? So my equation is f of x is equal to 3x minus 2, and they're saying f of x is equal to 19. So this, when they say it like this, when your number is after the equals, what they are saying is they're saying, okay, your y value is equal to 19. Now I want you to tell me the x value. What is my input value that is going to give me an output of 19? So we're going to go to y equals, we're going to type in 3x minus 2, and now we're going to have to go to the table. That's the only place that we have to get outputs, okay? So we're looking for a 19. So I'm going to scroll down until I see a y value of 19. There we go. And look what our x value is. Our x value is 7. So f of 7 will give me an output value of 19. So this is just going backwards. It's doing the opposite of what we did here. They're giving you the y value and asking you for x. All right, so now I'm going to go here, x squared plus 3x minus 4. And this is saying, again, okay, find x when y is equal to 0. Okay, x squared. So when y is 0, what is x? All right, so I'm going to clear my memory. I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to type in x, I got to go to y equals, x squared plus 3x minus 4. And I'm going to go to my table, and I'm going to look for an output of 0. Okay, ooh, I see a 0, and that's telling me that f is 1. So f of 1 is equal to 0. But if you remember, this is a quadratic, and a quadratic can have two x values equal to 0, because remember, that's an x-intercept, and it can cross the x-axis twice. So I'm actually going to go to my graph, and I want to verify. Okay, look how many times y can be equal to 0. Y is equal to 0 anywhere along the x-axis. And if you notice, how many times does this parabola cross the x-axis? It crosses twice. So we've got to find the both answers for where it crosses, and it crosses at 1. We already have that answer. And then I'm going to go back to my table and see if I can't find it. I know my x value has to be negative. There it is, at negative 4. So, and f of 4 is equal, f of negative 4 is equal to 0. So this actually had two answers. This was x equals 7, This is x equals 1 and x equals -4.